It's 6:39. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Ellie. We're live across the UK on both your TV and your radio. Don't forget to get in touch with your views this morning.
Yes, but let's start by taking a look at today's front pages. We'll start with the Sunday Times. It leads on claims that Downing Street officials ordered Sue Gray's report into rule-breaking lockdown parties be diluted.
The Observer takes a critical line on the Prime Minister's changes, alleging more infighting within the Conservative Party.
The Sunday Express backs Gove to succeed the supposed troubled Prime Minister.
The Mail on Sunday leads on the return of the Crown on beer glasses in time for the Queen's Jubilee.
The Sunday Telegraph leads on Boris Johnson's plan to name and shame petrol stations who are engaging in price gouging.
And the Mirror leads on their exclusive story about Meghan Markle reaching out to her sickly father in hospital.
And the Star reports that some local councils have banned bunting for the Queen's Jubilee due to excess weight on lampposts. There you go, you can always rely on the Star for something different, can't you?
I think that must be... Do you remember that story yesterday about there was one particular council where there was an awful lot of bunting, and I think they had to take it down because it was too noisy.
I'll bet you the flapping of the bunting.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Something like that. I'll bet you that's all that story is, but we'll find out because it's time to go through the papers now. Joining us this morning, former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, she'll love that one, and deputy editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
So, Dawn, PM under pressure in the Observer.
Yeah, part 356.
Well, exactly.
Exactly. You pay your money, take your choice this morning. It's politics or royal. This is the Observer, and Johnson is trashing Tory identity party grandees warn. In particular, Ian Duncan Smith, who says that the Tories are now basically not the Tories because we are facing the highest tax rises since for 70 years, and this is what Labour do traditionally, and now the Tories are more Labour, and Labour are saying taxes should be cut, which makes them more Tories. So if there was a general election tomorrow, none of us would know what to vote for, would we? But evidently this is more letters going into the 1922 committee, which need 54 letters to trigger a leadership contest, and so far we have estimated last night at 24.
It has to be 50...
54.
54.
Yes, and so far we have 24 in, so 30 more to go. But there's a lot of unrest, and basically the Sir Bob Neal, who is a Tory grandee, one of the old school ones, is saying the combination of collapse in trust in the Prime Minister coupled with a lack of clarity over what Conservatives actually stand for is a toxic mix in the mind of voters. Now, bearing in mind, we actually have two by-elections coming up in Wakefield and Tiverton and Honiton over the next 3 weeks. So again, it's a little bit of a litmus test. Now, we know that local elections are not reflecting on what happens in a general election, but it does seem, I mean, in a poll by the Observer, an exclusive poll, 56% of all voters, including 32% of 2019 Tory voters, believe Johnson should resign. Now, obviously, the $64,000 question is, who do you get to replace him? Who is there to save the Conservative Party? It was Rishi Sunak at one point.
Ian Duncan Smith wasn't the most successful Tory leader himself.
Well, quite exactly, yes. And I think there's a lot of axes to, being ground here, to be honest with you.
Do you think the Jubilee will make a difference to Boris's standing?
Well,
I think if we have this tremendous national feel-good...
I think if it wasn't for the war in Ukraine, I think Boris would have gone by now. I think, and you hate to politicise, obviously, so many people suffering, but I do think that has saved him up until now. What happens? I mean, if he can really actually sort that issue out, and obviously who knows whether he will or not, then I think he is safe. But at the moment, it's not looking good, is it? I mean, it really isn't. I mean...
No, but it's mid-term.
It is mid-term, and as you say, Anne, everything, mid-term is always notoriously when the leading party takes a dip. But as I said, the opposition, we don't actually have an opposition at the moment because they are the Tories, aren't they? So... Lib Dems are actually jumping all over this because they think they are going to do very well, certainly in the by-elections coming up, because it's a protest vote. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Meanwhile, Partygate rolls on, doesn't it?
Yes, so the latest saga is that basically figures in the government have apparently been leaning on Sue Gray to soften the report. Some evidence for this comes from the fact that there are various people whose antics were reported in the papers who mysteriously are not named by Sue Gray. I think at the end of the day, the contours of this story, the broad kind of sweep of it have been known for a very long time. I don't know anyone whose mind was going to be changed either way by the publication of Sue Gray's report. In the end, it was still pretty damning. You know,
yes, it was very embarrassing. Wasn't
very embarrassing, not only in terms of some of the details about people being sick or wine spilled on the wall, or even worse, you know, the kind of the rudeness to the cleaners and things like that. I think that's
almost worse than anything.
That's worse. That to me is by far the worst thing. But you know, the broad sweep of what went on, the Prime Minister and his staff, you know, broke at least the spirit of the rules. Whether he was only fined on one occasion, has been known for some time, and I think people have kind of made their minds up whether they want to, you know, whether they are fed up with Boris, whether they still like Boris. So I just find every new twist to this story a little bit tedious. And
what was interesting in the Times was it was saying that Sue Gray kind of notified those that would be named and shamed in her report, and the names were whittled down to just half what was in that initial publication. What do you make of that?
Well, people now have a right to respond to government reports, essentially, before they're published. I think it seems as if... it basically seems as if they have succeeded in watering down the report to some extent. But, I mean, most of us are more interested in what it means for the Prime Minister. Many of these people are, you know, sort of either civil servants or special advisors, people we haven't really heard of, or, you know, they're not public names or anything like that. I feel a little bit sorry for people like, you know, Simon Case, you know, these sort of heads of the civil service who the only thing we associate with them is these parties.
Yeah.
That's you know, the only thing they've ever done publicly. So yeah, I think that in the end, you know, the broad story is known. It's not going to change people's opinion of Boris, of the government, of how Downing Street operates. You know, we know that that's pretty chaotic, regardless of any of the drinking that goes on. Just politically, it's incoherent. I think people.
Well, talking of drinking, were they or were they not drinking out of a beer glass that has a little crown on it?
Yes,
We're talking about this. What do you think about bringing back imperial measurements?
I'm wildly excited by this story. This is obviously the front page of the Daily Mail. Cheers, Mom. 18 years after the EU ordered us to remove the crown symbol from our pint glasses, Boris brings them back in time for the Jubilee. Well, the Jubilee starts on Thursday, so how are all the pint glass manufacturers going to turn it around by Thursday, for a start? And rather embarrassing, I was talking to Fraser before we came on, I actually went through my kitchen cupboard this morning, and I do actually have a pint glass with a crown on it.
Wow.
May have been borrowed from a pub at one point. But that's obviously 20 years old.
Yeah.
Which is slightly...
So it's done well, lasting in your cupboard.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Yeah, tell me about that one. But this is the crown symbol for the first time since 2004, when the EU Measuring Instruments Directive. Yeah. Who knew that was even a thing?
I bet there was a whole committee that decided
absolutely, that. And I bet it cost thousands as well. Required the EU-wide CE mark on glasses. And now that we can all have our pints back.
But the point is, we'll if they repeal that law, we'll have the choice to have a glass with that.
The thing is, really, have you ever actually even thought about it? Have you ever actually gone into a pub and go, oh my God, it's a crown or it's a CE mark? Or
I think it's a nice touch. I've noticed it is a nice touch.
Most pint glasses are now branded anyway to the specific beer.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that you're not noticing the little crown symbol or the CE piece.
I get slightly OCD triggered if I'm served one lager in another lager brand glass. That's a problem.
No, it's not right. You get a plain pint glass these days.
A government source, whoever this government source was, said that none of us can figure out, you can't visualise a 4.5 kilo baby. But you do know a 10-pounder is a what?
But you don't buy a baby from the shop or from the pub, so...
No, but true.
I don't see the relevance of it.
True, but most of us still weigh ourselves in stones and pounds, don't we?
Well, this is the thing. We use a mixture of both. I mean, I know what I weigh in stones, which is frankly depressing. I don't know what I weigh in kilos, which would be even more depressing, I'm guessing, because it's a bigger number.
It's a bigger number, yeah, probably.
But I sort of walk miles and cycle miles.
Yes.
So we use a mixture of both, really. But I do know what...
But isn't it interesting? One of our viewers called in earlier and said that we buy our petrol in litres, but we measure the efficiency of the car in miles per gallon.
Yes. Yeah, so we automatically just switch between one or another.
Yeah, but the point is, it is illegal to trade without actually using the European version.
And wasn't there
now it won't be illegal.
A greengrocer was actually arrested
and
charged
for it?
He was called the metric martyr.
Yes, that's right.
20 years ago where he stood firm for something in imperial
Which
measurement.
frankly is insane. Which
Yeah,
never
it's not a hill
I think it was
to
a
die
bunch
on,
of bananas for like 35p equivalent of something like that.
Oh, right.
And were they bendy or straight? Because now we're getting into Brexit.
Oh,
territory.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we've got to leave it there, sadly, but it's a fascinating debate, and we're talking about that a lot today, so do get in touch with us, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Do you welcome the fact that we will be free to use imperial measurements again?
Yes, do let us know. And Dawn and Fraser will be back with us in the next hour. We've got loads to go through in the paper.